I'll play a Louis Armstrong song. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be with you, and I understand that we had to change the venue because a boy called Yoav Litvin wasn't happy with us meeting, but we managed to gather together. All right, I'm going to talk to you about predictability. For society, capitalist society, to be efficient, productive, sustaining itself, you need two elements. You need manufacturing, so people have a good reason to wake up in the morning, and you need finance. These two things supposed to work together. So if you want to develop a new idea, a new car running on, I don't know, popcorn, and you have it sussed out, you still have you need quite a lot of money. You call the people in Wall Street, and you get it together. The manufacturing section is quite big. You need a lot of people to work, a lot of aspects, different industries. The finance sector is pretty small. The problem that we often see, definitely we see it now, is that the finance sector is concerned with money for the sake of money. They're not concerned with issues to do with sustaining economy growth or whatever. From them, it's good enough if they turn all of you into consumers, which is something that happened to you in the last 2-3 decades. And if they manufacture this car in China, it won't happen in Detroit. And it is not an issue for them. And this is exactly the situation that we see in the United States. It happened to us here, in Britain, in France, in Spain, in the West. The only country that managed to sustain a good, healthy relationship between manufacturing and finance is actually Germany, and you will have to think why. It's quite frightening. I'm not allowed to say it because I'm working in Germany. This relationship between manufacturing and finance can be extremely healthy, and yet in this country it didn't work at all. This is why those who used to be working class are now workless class, and many of them are underclass. They are pushed out completely. Once you cannot consume, you become an underclass. I'm not original here. These very unique relationships were disclosed in a book that was published in 1920 by a guy called, it was written by a guy called Henry Ford. Have you heard about him? Henry Ford was probably the most interesting industrialist. He's probably the guy who invented American industry, American manufacturing. He produced an incredible text, a prophecy, and you have managed to ignore him. How? He realized that this sector, the finance, is a very problematic sector. He called them the international Jews, Wall Street. He didn't speak about all Jews. He didn't speak about their biology. He spoke about their political conduct, their lack of commitment to the people around them, and so on and so on. He produced this prophecy 20 years before George Soros was born. This crucial text was dismissed as an anti-Semitic text. Your chance to sustain your society as a manufacturing, productive society was out of the window. This is quite amazing because when we talk about an academic or an intellectual exchange or about scientific theories or social science, predictability, the ability to predict is a prime concern. Even now, when we realize that he produced a very frightening prophecy, we don't dare looking into it. Why? Let's look into another scientific analysis of our social condition. In the last 20, 30, 35, maybe even 40 years, we see constant growing in robotics, computers. There is less and less need in manual labor. We all agree about that. The implications are devastating. It means that people who are fit for manual labor only are doomed and left behind. When we look at cognitive ability, it looks like that. Sorry, this is ability, and this is quantity, numbers. So in a society, in every society, we have quite a few stupid people, quite a few very clever people, and many, many people like us, average. The problem that we see in America is that the people who were here do not have work, because we don't need manual workers. We make cars with robots. We don't even need taxi drivers, because very soon we will have self-drive cars in Uber, Google, or whatever. They're working hard on it. What we have and what we need, whether we need or not, it's a good question, is a cognitive elite. People who are very, very clever. They are mathematicians who can produce algorithms. They are bankers. There are engineers who can run factories that make cars on their own. And these people are pretty much doomed. They are the underclass. And the problem that we have in the American society is that this underclass is growing. It's growing and growing and growing. And even some of us who were kind of doing okay are doomed to become underclass. This is frightening, because those who are talking about 1% versus 99% are too stupid to understand it. They are probably here in terms of cognitive ability. It's not about how much money you have. Let's go. I believe in equality. I love equality. Let's decide that we redistribute wealth. This is not going to change. In a week's time, it will be exactly the same. This means, and you probably can see it in Seattle, that these people don't mix with other people. In Ford factory in 1920, you would have a very clever person walking side by side with a very stupid one. And they would have fun. And they would mix. And they would have many kids. And some of the kids will be very clever and some will be less clever. But now, in segregated America, this is gone. These are living in Manhattan. And when you go to New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn, you see a lot of poverty. Every time I come, I don't live in this country, so every time I visit, I say, oh my God, it starts to look bad, all those slums. And there is no way out of it. Again, this is quite clever. Unfortunately, I cannot take the credit for this observation. There was a guy named Richard Ernstein who understood that this is the case already in the 70s. He said, America is moving rapidly towards cognitive partitioning. Oligarchy and a lot of deprived people. It was ignored. His book, that I think came in '94, The Bell Curve, was burned. Not because he was wrong. He was absolutely right. And by the way, once you understand it, there are a lot of ways to deal with it. Once you understand that manufacturing is going down the tube, there are a lot of ways to deal with it. You put huge import tax, for instance. You tell your people, if you want to drive Ford, it will cost you 10,000 quid. If you insist to drive Toyota, it will cost you 50. This is how people used to do it. Ernstein and Charles Murray, they wrote this book together, but it was really Ernstein ideology, theory. He was an evolutionary psychologist. Said few things that got them into trouble, and we can talk about it maybe later. First, they spoke about IQ, and some elements within the left at the time didn't like people talking about IQ. And I'm not so sure that I like talking about IQ. As you probably noticed, I spoke about cognitive ability. Because, for instance, I'm pretty sure, and I may be completely wrong, that Donald Trump, in terms of IQ, is way below Hillary Clinton. In terms of IQ, yeah? But he won the election like that. When it comes to ability, the ability to become a president, he was better. So cognitive ability is a very vague term. But when you meet an able person, we know it. It's like love. You don't know why you love. I love. It works. So they spoke about IQ. They got a lot of penalty for it. And they also compared between races. They said that if these are the white Americans, these are the Asians and the Jews. Nobody gave them flack for saying that the Jews are more clever. They also said that black people are here, which seemed as if they were saying that black people are not as clever as. And they were wrong. They were wrong. In Britain, actually, black people are doing better than the white indigenous people. So they were wrong, but the system was right. They were wrong in the margin of their theoretical model. We can talk, I can now explain very easily why they were wrong about races. And we can leave it for later. It's a very interesting topic to explore. But they were right to suggest that if this is the underclass and this is the cognitive elite, Jews and Asians are overrepresented here and black are overrepresented here. They were right about that. But they were still wrong about the, and I'm not sure actually that they did. This is how it was interpreted about the correlation between skin color and intelligence. We are living in a very devastating or devastated universe. There is no much hope around. And this is exactly what I try to do, to explore in this book, Being in Time. I was curious to understand how did we manage to miss these two theories that could save us? Who were the people who obliterated our ability to think, to survive, to save ourselves? How is it possible that in the last 20, 30 years, it always takes me 5-10 minutes to get going. Now it's going to flow. How is it possible? How is it possible that we were reduced into mere consumers? Our political system basically evaporated. Once we were consumers, the politicians were not any longer an extension of our will. They were there just to sustain consumption. How did they do it? How did they do it? By means of credit. How did it happen? How is it possible that the media was silenced about it? Academia was silenced about it. How we, or you, the free Americans, were so stupid to let it happen. And you're not alone. The same happened in Britain, in France, in Spain, and maybe now in Germany as well. It's a West phenomenon. I looked into it, and I found two elements that are responsible for this shift and our lack of ability to stand up for our primal interests. One is political correctness, and we will talk about it in 10 minutes. The other one is identity politics. Identity politics is a fascinating topic. When we were young, actually I cannot even say we were young because some of you are so young that when we were young, the rest of us were young, you were not existent. When some of us were young, the left message was pretty simple. They used to say it doesn't matter if you're black or a woman or a Jew or a lesbian. We're all together against the bad guys. So we were a nice big cake. We fought together against the capitalists. At a certain stage, the left changed its attitude radically. Instead of being one, we learned how to speak as a woman, as a black, as a Jew, as a lesbian, as a Hispanic. Instead of fighting together for the most important things. And it's just a few. What are the most important things? Education, manufacturing, so you have a good reason to wake up in the morning, and health. And there are a few others. You said family. Yeah. We will talk about the family. We'll get there for sure. Instead of fighting for these three or four or five most important things that unite us all regardless of our skin color or gender or what we kind of fantasize of spending the night with. We end up fighting against each other. The most idiotic sectarian wars. And the capitalists, the bad guys, at the party. And this is something that was created by the left. Why did they do it? It's a good question. They did it for two reasons. First, the left is really upset by the idea of the working class being united. They are fearful of the working people. Now, this sounds like an absurd. The left is there for the working class, isn't it? Theoretically, yes. Practically, hardly. And why? The left is always upset by the fact that working class vote for Hitler, for Reagan, for Trump, for Thatcher, for Theresa May. Even now in England we have Corbyn. And they're still not sure. That's what the statistics suggest. Why they're not so sure? The working class are called working class because they go to work in the morning, something that, for instance, Corbyn never did. And Bernie Sanders also, working class. Working is not, you wouldn't find him in a factory. You tell John Smith, we'll meet tomorrow at 12 o'clock in the library. We start a revolution. He said, I can't, I'm at work. So there is a form of detachment here, huh? And this detachment is extremely concerning for left agitators. And this is why they want to create or to invent a new oppress. So instead of us being oppressed together and fighting together, now we are moving into a society where that is an amalgam of many oppressed groups. The women, the gays, the Jews, the black, and guess what? Each one of those oppressed groups is a cosmopolitan body. So for instance, let's say, the gays in America, it's not an identity that ends in a few miles up the road in the Canadian border. They are together with the Canadian gays. They share a lot between themselves. And it continues to Europe, to England, to France, to Poland, to Russia. And if you have a problem with Putin, we mobilize the gay lobby or the lesbian body, the lesbian lobby. And this is exactly how AIPAC is operating. What is the meaning of it? We basically turned every sector within the American society into new Jews. There is one difference. The Jews are better than anyone else in being Jews. You know why? They're doing it for 3,000 years. So if you want to be a woman and to do women politics, tfaddal, you say in Arabic, go for it. But you won't be as good as me. By the age of 5, I would be better. I was better than your best politician. It was in my language, it was in my culture, maybe in my circumcision. I don't know. But this is why I understand it. I understand all of it because I was born into it. And you spoke about family. Nobody tried to take it from me. I was born in Israel, in case you didn't know. And what I'm saying now may be upsetting for some of you, both people who are in the left and in the right. The biggest problem here is that most of these identities, if not all of them, are actually defined by biology. Am I right? By skin color, by your sexual orientation. If you are a Jew, is it by the genes of your mother? This is slightly problematic if you are a lefty. It's supposed to be. This is biological determinism, isn't it? What was the biggest problem with Hitler? It's not National Socialism. It's not the idea of fascism, of equality, Italian fascism, equality of Italian people. This is not a big problem. There were some other problems, Mussolini, tyrannical, and so on and so on. It's not, in Germany, National Socialism, the idea of equality between German-speaking people. This is not how you learned history. This was National Socialism in Germany. Equality of the German people. This is why we had Anschluss. This is why we went to the Sudeten. And then we have Hitler. Equality of one race. This is, for most people, where the problem really starts, because if you are born to the wrong parents, you have a problem in Germany. The idiotic new left bought into this model of biological determinism. They are the new Hitlerians. And they are so detached that they don't even understand it. Do they need a saxophonist from London to point at it? What do they do in universities? Bunch of morons. But the new left wasn't alone. Jewish intelligentsia also was extremely concerned by working class people being united. And why? They had a good reason. When working class are united, they're threatened by it. They had some bad experience in Europe and so on and so on. For Jewish intelligentsia, this is an ideal condition. Everyone become a Jew, a tribal. We are an amalgam of tribes. And you spoke about the family. You can talk about the church. In order to revolutionize a society and to form new alliances, we have to destroy the family. We have to destroy the church. We have to destroy everything that makes us into one. We have to get rid of the flag. In some cases, we even launch a war against statues in this country. Can you imagine how ridiculous it looks from abroad? If you don't like someone, you make sure that he's there. So you bring your kid and say, I see this Robert Lee, I don't like him. If they are concerned with it. I don't get into this debate. Obliterating your past? In the name of what? It was New Left together with Jewish intelligentsia that led this divisive maneuver worldwide. And if you ask me 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I'm writing about identity politics. I was probably the first one to write about it extensively. I'm doing it from 2005. I can see that we have a disaster ahead. When we think about, if you would ask, I'll start again, if you would ask me 5 years ago, I would argue that this situation was hopeless, that they've won, that we are now divided, we cannot think properly. And then, pretty much out of the blue, you hear that in Scotland, out of the Scots, don't like it. They want to be Scots together, half of them. They don't want to be British or gay. They want to separate. And in Britain, they don't want to speak as a Brits. They want to be Brits. This is the difference between the as a people and the people who prefer being. And this is being in time. And then election in America. And if it wasn't clear to most of you, on the night of the election, it was clear that America is divided pretty much in the middle between the people who see themselves as a Jew, as a black, as a woman, as a gay, and those who see themselves primarily as Americans. The Americans voted for Trump, and the Eze voted for Clinton. It is very, very simple. It is the vision of an amalgam of identitarians as opposed to one nation of people who move to God together and deal with the problem. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter. This is what was appealing in Trump. Whether Trump can provide or not is a big question, and I'm not so sure at all. We learned another thing in the election. The left is always all the time talk to us about progress and utopia, and we are moving forward. And then suddenly, out of the fucking blue, we find out that utopia, for most people, is nostalgia. Trump is telling us, I don't think that they speak about it anymore, but at the time, let us make America great again. Nostalgia to the family, to the church, to having a good reason to go to sleep early because we have to work tomorrow. But it's not just Trump. Bernie Sanders, exactly the same message. Bernie Sanders is also anti-identitarian. He's anti-identitarian. He doesn't like this left that divide us, but then he went to New York and he needed the Jewish voice. And he was very identitarian. Suddenly he was a Jew. And then he left New York and he wasn't again anti-identitarian. 10 minutes, 40. Corbyn in Britain. What is it that we love about Corbyn? I voted for Corbyn. What we like about Corbyn is an old style lefty. He didn't want all these identities. Now we start to move fast forward. How is it possible that such a huge transition happens in our society and we don't say a word? We are impoverished. This is a war against us by very clear, specific entity. In fact, there is a guy here called Soros, and he's not alone, there are a few of them, that funds this entire project. How is it possible that we cannot talk about it? Political correctness. What is political correctness? Political correctness is politics that doesn't allow political opposition. Politics that doesn't allow political opposition is the definition of tyranny. Political correctness is way more dangerous than tyranny. And why? Because in a case of tyranny, you say, I have some issues. I don't like Mussolini. I don't like Stalin. I don't like Tony Blair. This is an external entity. In the case of political correctness, the tyrant is here. It's yourself. It's self-suppression. The first time you know it happens to you, tell the truth, and people, oh, you know, this is something that we don't say anymore. The next time, it occurs to you, but you don't mention it. And there is no third time. You learn not to think. You become a zombie. The reason that you have so many zombie films produced in Hollywood, it's not a science fiction reality. The reason that you are fascinated by it is because you somehow empathize with them. You put yourself in your shoes because you are a bunch of zombies. And so am I. I don't try to upset you. But you should be upset, all right? Let's agree about that. How all of that happened to us? This political correctness, identity politics. In order to understand what really happened here, we have to go back to two fundamental notions in the history of Western civilization. Athens and Jerusalem. Athens, I'm using them now metaphorically. Yeah? It's not exactly what Athens was. Athens is the city, the birthplace of philosophy, of the birthplace of science, poesis, music. In Athens, we think things through. Jerusalem, and I think that we have at least 2 Hebrew speakers in the room. Jerusalem is the complete opposite. It's the city of revelation. God comes to us and tells us, listen, this is your Torah. This is what you do. You do that, you do that, you do that, you do that. You don't do that, you don't do that. But Moses came down with 2 tablets, the 10 Commandments. And you know why 2? Apparently, I wasn't there, but that's what my grandmother, she was there. When God came to Moses and told him, listen, I have something great for you. It's like everything that you have to know how to follow it. And Moses said, how much? He said, it's for free. Give me 2. Jerusalem isn't necessarily Jews. Tony Blair is a Jerusalemite. Hitler was Athenian, became a Jerusalemite. It's not right or left. It's 2 metaphysical concepts. In Athens, you think things through. In Jerusalem, we do naaseh v'nishma. First we do, then we contemplate. We follow orders. Political correctness is exactly that, setting society into a subservient body that follows orders. In our society, we don't have any more ethical judgments. We don't produce ethical judgments. We follow orders. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't think about it. This is how we make people into zombies. The progressives are the ultimate Jerusalemites. They know what is right and what is wrong. And they're also chosen knights. If I'm progressive, someone else must be reactionary. How do I sustain my progressive existence unless I'm progressive in comparison to someone else? So if I don't agree with you, you become a basket of deplorables. If I don't agree with you, you become rednecks. The left calls people rednecks. Rednecks, they have their necks red because they were walking in the field. You were supposed to, you used to represent them. To save America, to save the West, is to bring back Athens. Everything good in this country is Athens-oriented. Your freedom, your First Amendment, democracy, this is all from Athens. Political correctness, legislation, more and more and more and more laws, and we cannot even talk about anything. And when somebody comes with a theory, I go back now to the beginning of this talk, that can save America 100 years ahead, we kill him. And by the way, the guy who invented or the guy who observed this issue of a cognitive elite, the bell curve, Richard Einstein, didn't even see his book published. The assault was so immense that he died on the week of the publication. If you want to survive the next 10, 20 years as a nation, as people with dignity, you go back to Athens. You learn to think and to express yourself, and you bear the consequences, because there is no other way. I think that this is exactly the time. Huh? What time? Being in time, huh? Yeah. 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 So I try to be as brief as I can. Hit me. With questions. Yes.
So you were talking about the autonomization, and how that all these jobs are going to disappear. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
Pretty soon they're going to come in with the self-driving cars and all that. That's going to eliminate half of the labor force right there.
Mm-hmm.
So like in the Northern European countries, they're starting to discuss a basic minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
So is that happening in Britain too, or are they starting to deal with that?
Yeah, but as I mentioned before, the left try to address this problem while denying what the problem is. So if these are the people who are having all the money, and these are the people who are not manufacturing, how I can even think of giving them minimal wages if they don't work? What we have to address is not distribution of wealth, but how do we get out of this partitioning? How do we get these people to be truly involved in their society? And you know what is the answer? Nationalism. Patriotism. These people are not patriotic at all. They're actually anti-patriotic because they want to produce in China. It's cheaper. And when China is starting to get expensive, they will start to produce in Africa. And where is the left? The left used to be kind of ordinary elite. In normal countries, elite looks like squash burger. Some of the left union leaders were extremely stupid. Others were extremely clever. Many were average, more or less. The left now, this is shocking what I'm going to show you. The left now, and it's with the red pen. The only thing that is red in the left is this pen. The left is now here. They are the most boring, average people on this planet. Why I'm saying it? If they would be clever, they would be here. They wouldn't have time to be leftists. And if they were stupid, they would be here. Nobody would notice them. So what is happening now? Look, this is frightening. The left, the so-called left, this is not left, this is new left. This is what the left is. Yeah? The new left is here, a bunch of average, treacherous morons. They are getting money, funds, serious funds, from the people here, from people like Soros, the Open Society Institute, and their job is to have a fight with the people that they were initially committed to, and this is the Antifa. and they don't even know how to fight these people. So they invented now all these kind of new military strategies like Puputov. Have you heard about Puputov? It's like Molotov bottles, but containing poo-poo. They are really enthusiastic about poo-poo ballistic. It's quite disgusting. All right? These people here, and by the way, Corbyn is here. He's not the most clever guy. He's just a very, very nice guy. He's a very, very nice guy. This is the problem, by the way. He's here. He cannot address this issue because left, the old left, was all labor-oriented. If there is no labor, what is the meaning of left? We are dealing with cognitive partitioning. The left doesn't have the intellectual, the ideological, the political terms to understand the society in which we live. And by the way, the right doesn't even care. And this is why I call this book, Being in Time, a Post Political Manifesto. By the way, I call it manifesto just to annoy some leftists. It's not a manifesto. I was asked today to choose for a music magazine. I'm a musician. I'm a full-time musician to choose my 10 most favorite tunes, and I put Wagner. I don't like Wagner at all, but just number 10 just to annoy some people. Sorry.
Oh, so in 1994, I found a document that just blew my mind, and the implications were so profound, it just really changed my life. And that in 2005, I managed to finally to relocate it, and I put it on the internet. And the way that I made certain errors when I formatted it and so on, I can see that this was the origin of this document that has grown legs, and I just see it absolutely everywhere. And it was authored by a guy who's just so remarkable. I really want to know if you know who he is and what you think of him. His name is Benjamin Friedman.
For sure.
Yeah, so I've always thought of you as sort of a latter-day Benjamin Friedman, sort of something of one, right?
No.
With regard to one topic.
Benjamin Friedman is actually a very, very interesting character in terms of the understanding of the history that led us to World War II and to a certain extent again to the world in which we are living. It takes us a bit out of this discussion about identity. But what is so fascinating about Benjamin Friedman is the fact that what is fascinating about Benjamin Friedman is that most of us didn't know about it. Most of us didn't hear about it. You said 95. Probably I heard about Friedman for the first time in 2007 when, I don't know, a video popped out or whatever, all right?
Yeah, I put it on the internet in 2005.
It's you?
Yeah, so
all right.
It was like, I couldn't believe it wasn't already there. And when I put it, it just spread like wildfire. And I like to think that
it's very interesting because it explains exactly what happened with Balfour Declaration. Now, okay, you push me there. So I'll do it. History, we are told, is an attempt to tell us what really happened. What really happened. Forget about it. History in practice, and I'm borrowing it from Lyotard, who wrote about it in Heidegger and the Jews, which is a good book to read. History is an institutional attempt to conceal our shame. This is what we are doing. This is what we are doing. Jews have to conceal the fact that wherever they go, it ends with a disaster. They conceal the fact so well that they don't even understand that this is exactly what is happening to them to Palestine. They only have to lose one war. Am I right? Even the Israelis approve. Ex-Israelis. All right? Americans, you have so much shit in your past. 100 years, the last 100 years, there is no single year where you don't drop bombs on innocent civilians. What do you do with it? What do you do with slavery? You build Holocaust museums. You divert the attention from your disastrous past. This is not what history should be. History, the role of the real historian, is identical with the role of the good psychoanalyst. What a good psychoanalyst is doing is unveiling the shame. Lacan was very good at it. All his patients, without exception, committed the suicide. Look at your history. You don't understand a thing. This is why it took so many years for Friedman to pop out. And if you mention Friedman in some circles, you will be excluded. If I assume that if you are a history teacher and you come to your students and say, let's today analyze critically this speech, there is no reason for you to come to school tomorrow. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. Do I have to pass this box here? I don't know. So we already did it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Amitai Etzioni?
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain to me what you know about him?
I don't know enough to elaborate, but when I looked into it, it looked quite bad.
It's community, right?
Yeah.
Communitarian. So
Yeah.
this splitting up of the left into communities like gays and blacks and these and that. That's
Yeah.
a communitarian gambit, right?
Yeah,
It's global.
for sure.
There's no more
For sure.
no more state. We just got these global communities of gays.
For sure, for sure. I actually elaborated on it, but it's actually not just Amitai Etzioni. If you want really to dig into this issue, it is something that, as far as I'm concerned, starts with Frankfurt School and Wilhelm Reich. Etzioni comes much later. And the initial project started actually with a great Italian socialist and thinker, interesting at least, Gramsci. And to some extent, people, you can even go as far as Sorel. They understood that the communist revolution will never happen. Why it will never happen? Because the working class is going to work. They don't have time for revolutions. And Marx is, anyway, too complicated. Dialectical materialism, oh my God. You know, you need a PhD in physics to understand it. And if you have a PhD in physics, you know that it's wrong. it's a problem. All right, one second. So they said, okay, in order to bring progress, we have to change the way people think. And what is the name of Wilhelm Reich book from the 30s about sex?
Orgon something?
No, Orgon is later. Never mind. I'm just getting old and I'm jet lagged, so I don't remember the title. But if you look for Wilhelm Reich in 34, I think, 35, how is it possible that we offer them a communist revolution, and these moron Germans vote for Hitler. I know it's because they are sexually oppressed. So the way to deal with it is to liberate them sexually. He is the father and the mother of the sex revolution. And I tell you, man, you went through a sex revolution and you are so liberated, you know. You progress so much, you know. So this was a project that was set against any form of hegemony, the family, the church, the men, the white, except the Jew. What is postmodernism? Deconstructing every narrative except the Jewish one. What is post-colonialism? Deconstructing of every form of colonialism except the Israeli one. It's quite great. And they get away with it. Why? Because Jewish power, which is the medium in which we are living, is the power to silence criticism of Jewish power. And this is exactly the core principle of Jerusalem 2000, maybe 1990s until now. And only now we start to talk about it. Thanks God.
When I was living in New York recently, I went to a concert at Alice Tully Hall, and it was 20th century avant-garde classical music. And I was sitting there looking around at the audience before it began, and I thought, I'm living in a Adorno world, because it was amazing. It was an overwhelmingly Jewish and oligarchical audience. These people were fantastically rich, you could just tell. They were overwhelmingly Jewish, and they were all there to listen to avant-garde classical music that most people can't understand. And I thought, this is the world that Adorno wanted to create. And the world we live in today is an oligarch of the left-wing elitist oligarchy. And the Frankfurt School's whole political paradigm is organically connected with oligarchy, because as I see the Frankfurt School, it basically said, okay, let's not organize the proletariat. They voted for Hitler. We have to have a different route. Dictatorship, one-party politics is dangerous because that led to Stalin. So we have to go the cultural hegemony route. And basically what it boils down to is creating a coalition of groups that are aggrieved and arguing for the upward mobility and inclusion of aggrieved groups. And of course, Jews, I think you're right, they're all proxies for Jews. And that has helped the rise of the contemporary cultural and economic Jewish oligarchy that we have today. Because once you eliminate barriers to upward mobility and inclusion within the most powerful institutions of society, well, Jews are very, very good at upward mobility. And so it really is a strange paradox from the point of view of any kind of orthodox Marxist that you would have a left-wing oligarchy. But that's what George Soros is all about, and that's what a whole bunch of other people are all about, is basically reinforcing this left-wing oligarchy. And now that Jews seem to have so much power, they're becoming more conservative, which I think is more...
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the one thing that we can notice... Okay, I have to... In order to understand why you are paralyzed and why it is not an easy war, I cannot tell you too much because I want you to buy the book. because I was a Jew. All right. So I think marketing, yeah? Yeah. 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 All right. So this is something that you have to understand, and it's quite devastating for you guys. Should be. I hope that it's devastating, because when you understand how grim the situation is, you awfully start to think. Let's say that this is a Jewish problem. Palestine. Let's Palestine. Banking. Cultural Marxism. All right? Cultural Marxism, which is important because this is exactly what you spoke about. Control of the media. Media. My handwriting is disaster. Give me another. So this is Palestine, Middle East, foreign policy. Foreign policy. Foreign policy. Policy. All right. Academia. Academia. Okay. If this is a Jewish problem, when the Jews admit that everyone wants to throw them under the wheels of the bus, which is quite nasty, and most of the time they think that this is the situation, what they do, they form a satellite opposition. Now, this is not conspiratorial. If you are a Jew and you see what Israel is doing in Palestine, you say, you know what, I don't feel right about it. You know, it's like, you know. If you are a Jew and you understand what Goldman Sachs did to the universe, it's Madoff or out. If you're a Jew, maybe this is me. I'm not a Jew anymore, but when you see what cultural Marxists did to you all, you feel guilty. So this is not a conspiratorial act necessarily. Sometimes it is. Like JVP, I believe, by now is a conspiracy. And they start to fight. And when they fight like no one else. Molot Puputov, Urantov, you don't want to know. And this is your part. So until now, you were upset because of Palestine, because of foreign policy. This is what is happening now. You form a new theater. You move out. You say, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We let the Jews deal with it. Why? Because if you don't, we would have a Holocaust every week. And you're good people, you don't want to have Holocaust. It's gas and it's a lot of work. So it's very safe for you. You move out. But let's what happened here. What is happening here? Palestine, problem. We have JVP, all these good Jews for Palestine. Banking, we have Karl Marx. It didn't start today. Cultural Marxist. Who is cultural Marxist? Who is the opposition? Horowitz. And this was a shock for me. Because I started to write about it, and then I came across Andrew Breitbart. And I was fucking impressed. He said everything. But then I noticed something, because I started to read, not in the book, but when I saw the videos, there is every 10 minutes, he speaks about his bar mitzvah. I know how to bar mitzvah. By the way, as a saxophonist, I even learned to play 12 bars mitzvah blues. It's too complicated. Every 10 minutes, he speaks about his bar mitzvah. So, right, so he's a Jew. And I already developed this model. So I said, let's listen carefully to what he says. And this is how Andrew Breitbart, probably the most popular critics of cultural Marxism, this is how he how we present this problem. I'm probably verbatim, probably word by word, what I'm going to tell you now. In the 30s, a bunch of German political scientists immigrated to this country and started to interfere with our Judeo-Christian culture. What did he do here? It's more than that. They were not German social scientists. The truth is, in the 30s, a bunch of Jewish social scientists immigrated to this country and started to interfere with our Christian culture. He made your culture into an extension of his Judeo, and the cultural Marxists became Germans, foreigners. Genius? Why do you need Gilad Atzmon to tell you? I'm a fucking saxophonist. It's not my job. I have to play fast and loud. All right? So, we have JVP, we have Bank, it's Marxism, we have cultural, so we have Breitbart, media. Yeah? Breitbart, of course. Democracy later. Democracy now. Democracy now. Yeah? Huh? Why not? Absolutely. For sure. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, no. So you have a CNN, we're gatekeepers. They take Democracy Now, Paul J, Real News. All right? Foreign policy. Noam Chomsky. Academia. It's again, Andrew Breitbart. Now, what it means, every crucial issue in your society is now, ladies and gentlemen, an internal Jewish debate. If we find out that global warming is a Jewish problem, it's because of the Jews. I'm going crazy now, yeah? Within a week, we will have Jews against global warming, and within 2 weeks, they will run the show. It will turn into an internal, and by the way, I pretended that it's a crazy, because it's already happening. It is, you want to ask a question? It's already happening. Quite a few academics, including Timothy Snyder, now arguing that actually the crisis in Syria, for instance, the refugee tsunami, is not because of the wars that we fought for Israel. It's because of the global warming. No, I'm not trying to. I'm serious. So there is this discourse is now brewing. Okay. So now, how do you get out of this disaster? It's very difficult. It's very difficult unless you read Gilad Atzmon. That's it.
Well, the first thing is just realizing that there is a disaster.
Exactly.
And then you start thinking for yourself.
I had some of my friends that you're just some other
Bill.
one of these pro or anti-Zionist Jews. I'm like, no, it's not just another one of these anti-Zionist Jews.
Yeah.
Because it's always fake.
It's always fake.
Gilad, the big elephant is Iran. So it's basically Israel meets Putin. Want to comment?
I'm not.
Where
is Israel in all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pogrom about to happen.
No. This is this is a very interesting thing. I think, that you have a lot to learn from Israel. This is quite upsetting what I'm going to tell you now. We have a lot to learn from Israel. Israel is successful. It will be annihilated sooner or later, because it's quite a crazy project. But look what do they manage to achieve. They're running your foreign policy. They're quite happy there. I don't go there, but they are happy there, aren't they? Let me show you something fascinating about Israel. At a certain stage, as you probably realized, it was primarily the Jews who taught us to speak as a. Yeah, it was the Jews who created this kind of fragmented, multi-cultural, blah, 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 society. At a certain stage, the Israelis, the Zionists said, what are you on about? This is not good for us. This is not good for us, the Jews. What does it mean for you to speak as a Jew in Brooklyn? What does it mean? It's bullshit. Come to Israel and be a Jew. And this is quite a lot of fun. You go to Israel, you join the army, you learn to learn how to fly a F-16 tank. This is why the Zionist project is 1,000,000 times bigger than JVP. What JVP offer you? To go with placards, to do a picket in front of the Israeli embassy? And then to go to Yom Kippur, and then you sit with the people you have protested against. You know, you're eating and doing business, real estate. Israel is a genuine, patriotic project that is supported by very forceful communities around the world, and even obliterated our ability to oppose it. They basically invented this.
Why aren't the Jews there then? Why are they here?
By the way, a lot of them are there, and at a certain stage, the Jews in Israel, the whole idea of Zionism initially was to take all the Jews away. Why do they manage to get a state? Because the Zionists promised the Goyim, don't worry, we take them away. And this was the Zionist project. At a certain stage, they said, actually, no, it's much better for us when they are here. Ram Emanuel, he goes to Israel while he'll drive a bus. Here he was running the president office.
He's the mayor of Chicago now.
Yeah, I know. All right, Dershowitz.
He's a race trader.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but this is the issue, and Shlomo Zand writes about it. This was a transition within the Zionist concept. Rather than bringing the Jews over, we actually let them walk for us here.
I forget the question was Iran and self-inflicted pogrom.
Sorry.
Oh, Iran.
Iran.
Iran. You know, they want to do away with the nuclear deal, which seems like a sensible deal.
Yeah.
They want to do away with it. In the breach, it means conflict. And it means Putin, and it means
For sure.
four horsemen. It means what?
For sure, I can extend this issue. I try to go around still to put America in the center of it. But for sure, America is now driven every year, every 2 years, every 3 years into a new conflict. Probably the biggest achievement of Obama was securing such a deal. But Israel is not alone there. I think that Trump is not an easy character to understand. I think that Trump realized that the only way to sustain his reign is to have a war. And he's just gambling on many wars at the moment. Maybe Korea, Iran, race war, what, something. We need something. Now, this is something that I should say, and this is I kind of every 5 minutes I said that I'm going to upset some of you, and you smile at me. I don't know. I should try to work harder. The problem that I have with, it's not that I try to preach you, not at all. This would be the Jewish thing to do, and I try not to be a Jew. For many years, it's not easy to de-Judaize yourself. The problem that I have with, I'm going into the next topic, sorry, with a lot of the rights movements that are operating in America now is that I'm afraid that you are missing a great opportunity. The mess that is created with the identitarian left can be easily amended, I believe, or fixed, or whatever you want to call it, looking for that which unite us all. And I'm afraid, and I know that some people here, at least one friend of mine, is identitarian. And I'm afraid that operating as white identitarians, you are missing the opportunity to put this state, this nation on its feet, including yourself on your feet. Now, we spoke once about the issues that are involved with identitarian politics. Identitarians, ideology, somehow always removes you from yourself. I'm a saxophonist. I don't identify as a saxophonist. You know why? Because I know that I'm a saxophonist. If I start to identify as a saxophonist, and I go to a club, I start to ask myself, as a saxophonist, should I put a earring? Should I put a nicer blazer? No, I don't have to. I'm a saxophonist. This is exactly what happens to gays. Rather than being themselves, they identify as gays. Rather than being homosexual, they identify as gays politically. You have to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. That rather than being who you are, white, brown, green, you start to identify with your biology, with culture. It removes you from yourself. But the most important issue, and I read now a book that was written actually by ultra-Zionist historian, Cesarani. It's a very interesting book. He wrote a book, he died, he didn't completed it. And he argued that he tried to write the first proper history of the Holocaust. And this book actually confirms everything that revisionists have been saying for years. One of the most interesting things that I found a lot of interesting things there, but one of the most interesting things, he has interviews and texts that were written by Germans at the time, and they say the Jews were not the problem. We loved Hitler because he united us, because he made us feel great as people. So it's true that the Jews were left out, but this wasn't their concern. We didn't hate the Jews. We loved ourselves. You have to learn to love yourself. We have to finish.